So let's start off with creating the directory structure of where we will keep the plugin in the first place. So I keep everything in my Gits folder, and let's make a new directory called OAI. Let's keep it lowercase just so it's easier for us in the future. And let's cd into OAI. I have this GitHub repo here that is a sample Obsidian plugin. So we're going to actually open this and copy the link. Let's take a quick look here and see if there's anything noteworthy about this sample plugin. What I'm going to do is activate my Readwise plugin and wait for it to enable. And now it's not only saved this web page to Reader, but we can now go ahead and highlight the most important parts of this. So that's what I'm going to do now, and I'll show you all my highlights once I'm done. One negative side effect that I found just now is that when you highlight on a dark theme type of web page, the highlight actually becomes black text, unfortunately. So if I want to highlight this very important portion here, it's going to make it pretty unreadable for you. But I will show you the end result that will be synced into my Obsidian Vault. So we'll go over that step by step once I'm to that part. All right, so I'm done with all of the highlights, and now I've synced the Readwise plugin to my Obsidian. I just did this to do it automatically myself. I just typed in Readwise and selected the first option here. But I have it set to, I believe every hour it updates all of my Readwise highlights and article selections. So I just did this to speed up the process. So from the selections I've made, we have the key details outlined here. We know that this project uses Typescript for the majority of it. It also adds a ribbon icon. We have all of these basically defaults that are already present. We don't have to recode these or code these from scratch. We have a ribbon icon, which shows a notice when clicked, command for opening up a sample modal, plugin settings tab. Seems like the local development folder should be within .obsidian/plugins/your plugin name folder. We're going to be running all of this using Node.js, and it seems like the way to go about releasing this is pretty straightforward. So I think that we will have a public version running within, I think, less than a week, honestly. Granted, there is one extra step that needs to be passed. We need to be added to the community plugin list. And so there seems to be somewhat of a small but not too intensive process of going about this. We also have the Obsidian API GitHub that we can reference. And so let's take a look at this real quick. It seems like all of the API documentation is located within the obsidian.d.ts file. And as you can see here, it's quite an extensive file. I mean, we're talking almost 5,000 lines. So this will obviously be very useful for the IDE that we're using, Visual Studio Code in our case, to reference and make sure that we are using the best way to go about things, whatever it is that we want to accomplish, thanks to this file as a reference. The next step is to clone the actual Git repo. So I'm going to do that by the very typical git clone and then the URL of the Git repo itself. It will start cloning, and we should have everything. So now if I open up Ranger, which is my built-in file explorer, uses Python. It's a great console package. Anyway, let's look at our Obsidian here and go in a little deeper. Let's select every single one of these files, copy them out or cut them out, and put them into the main OAI directory. So now let's delete this. We don't need that anymore. And let's also delete this. So now all we have is the plugin template itself without any filler nonsense. So now that we have the project open, the most important file in all of these files is the main file. Here we have the sample additions of showing how the ribbon icon works, status bar items, commands, the settings information, the loading and saving of settings, the sample modals. I mean, really, everything that we will need to really get this project off the ground, up and running. One thing that I overlooked is that I should have this folder, instead of in my Gits, I should instead have it within my actual Obsidian Vault here, within .obsidian/plugins, and then whatever I want the plugin to be called. So the folder itself is called OAI. That's what the plugin will be called. And now that should be in the appropriate location for me to build off of from here. So now let's cd into our base vault and hop into, let's see, .obsidian. And now we should be able to cd into OAI. And here we are. So we are now in the appropriate directory. So as you can see, we already have the main.js file that's been compiled from the little command that we wrote earlier. This is what's being used on the public version of the plugin. The main.ts, which is the file that we will be working on, this is just a pre-compiled version, which allows us to do a lot more simply because of the differences between TypeScript and JavaScript. Now I want to see this plugin in action. So let's head on over to our Obsidian Vault here and close it out because remember we have to reopen it. Let's type in Obsidian and first things first, let's go into settings. Seems like if we search sample plugin, we have it right here. Let's turn it on. Let's get in here and see that it's just a very default example setting. And we already have the setting functionality, as you can see. I'm going to open up a new note, just name it whatever. And now let's go into the command palette and type in sample plugin. And we can see that we have 3 different commands: sample editor command, open sample modal, simple, and then a complex modal. Let's go with the first one, sample editor command. It just pastes in the 3 words sample editor command. So that's a cool understanding of that text generation beginning of functionality, right? Because what did we just do? We technically generated text with the running of a command. All we have to do is just expand upon it and integrate ChatGPT into it. The next command is the simple modal. So let's see what that looks like. It's just a simple modal, as it states, with some whoa text in it. Whoa indeed. And last but not least, number 3 for sample plugin, the complex modal. It's not really a difference there. None at all, really. But nothing that we can't work with. Certainly we will expand upon this and grow it into something beautiful. At the bottom here, you can see the status bar text, which is part of the plugin. We will be able to make this clickable and hopefully pop open a UI of some sort and really make things functional from there. We also have this little sample plugin on the sidebar here. Let's click it. And all that happens is it shows this is a notice. So whenever you click it, it will pop open this little piece of text, very similar to the text generator processing that pops up. So that's very, very useful for us. That's it for today. Tomorrow, we are going to get into the nitty-gritty details of really programming this plugin out. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this little update. See you tomorrow.